Project management is babysitters for adults.
It can be true at times.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Tell me about that.
With some simple organization and habits, they could probably take care of those tasks themselves.
Okay.
If you don't set yourself up with those systems in place, you're going to constantly be falling.
Collaborative project management. It's really funny because I love the topics that breed tension or contention, and so I wanted to do in my research. I wanted to do a little bit of processing over what people's perception of project management actually is, and so where do you go for that? It's got to be Reddit, right?
Absolutely.
Like you're going to get the most honest reviews on that website. And so I want to share with you guys some Reddit posts, and I want to catch your initial reaction to it. Ben, you are our Microsoft liaison, right? I would say you're Microsoft extraordinaire, lead of our modern work and learning team. Katie, you're our director of app dev, but you have a tremendous amount of experience in project management. And so I can't wait to get your reactions, and I can't wait to ask a bunch of questions of you. So let me read to you some project management thoughts and quotes from Reddit. Are you ready?
Totally ready.
Let's do it.
First one is this: project management is babysitters for adults.
I feel like I'm not the one supposed to be answering, but that's
Yeah.
what I think of when I think of project management, honestly.
Okay.
It can be true at times.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Tell me about that.
There's times that people should be getting after certain administrative tasks and need to be reminded. And with some simple organization and habits, they could probably take care of those tasks themselves. So
Okay.
setting a date on something, following
Fair.
up on something.
And not even that they're missing it on purpose, but that they just create this habit and
Yeah.
it will go better.
We just need a better system in place. And
Yeah.
if you don't set yourself up for success with your systems, big fan of Atomic Habits. I'll drop that book. If you
Yeah.
don't set yourself up with those systems in place, you're going to constantly be falling. And so if you don't have that, then your project manager is going to swoop in and try to save you and will babysit at times. They don't want to do that, but
Yeah.
it's
So
a necessity for some time.
So there's
Okay.
always a degree of babysitting potentially needed, but if you have good people on the team that do their part,
Yeah.
no babysitting needs to happen. But potentially there does need, if you're not that good at it,
Yeah.
the PM is going to come babysit you.
And there's always going to be a degree of, hey, you missed this. And
Yeah.
everybody's imperfect, right? Who hasn't
Fair.
dropped the ball here or there or needed
Absolutely.
a reminder that they missed a deadline or that they needed to follow up on something.
Yeah.
We're all humans. So there's that. I think it's when that percentage exceeds a certain amount that we're not using our project managers to their full potential or for the value that they might bring to the team.
Okay. Yeah. Great point.
I think what's interesting too with project managers specifically or project management, it's a role and it's a priority for that person.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas you're going to probably be working with other people who have a lot of other priorities that they're juggling. Like it's possible that that particular project isn't their only priority or maybe not even their main priority.
Sure.
So as the, project manager, I'm sure there's some of that where it's like, okay, I'm following up and I'm basically kind of nagging to say, hey, this particular thing needs to get done in order to stay on track, and you're the person to do it.
So, in essence, babysitter then.
No. In fact, and I was gonna try to find it. I maybe like a week ago, and I don't even know how this person popped up on my LinkedIn feed. But they were on their pedestal because they're like project management certified, this, that, and the other thing. They work for probably big organizations that have really complex, big projects and everything.
Yep.
And I don't remember the details of the post, but I was like, that's a really fair statement. That they literally said some people equate project management to basically herding cats or do X, Y, Z.
Yeah.
But in reality, and you hinted to this a little bit already, there are other values added to a project by having a good project manager that go way beyond just that.
I totally agree with you both. And I think that your view in project management is just the opposite end of the spectrum as to where like maybe a tech or an engineer or something like that would say that's babysitting. So that's why I said like, oh yeah, babysitter. Because if you're standing in the other position, they're like, oh, that feels like babysitting. But the reality of it is there's so much value in holding people accountable for the role that they have and making sure that those tasks are being completed within a time frame that makes sense for the client and then also for the project itself, right? So I'm totally on board with you. I was just playing devil's advocate there. But
So, Trav, who do you think made that post on Reddit? Was it a tech or someone working, or not a tech, a non-PM
question.
person, or
Great
was that
question.
a PM person? I'm assuming it was a non-PM.
non-PM.
That's what I'm
totally.
assuming, right?
It's somebody that's like,
Because that's a comment I would make as a non-PM.
yeah,
If I would,
you
I
got
would,
it. You got
but
it.
you know, yeah, it's all good.
Okay. How about this one? Are you ready? Project management would not be necessary if people would just if adults would just do their jobs.
Nah.
Okay. I was actually kind of hopeful for the nah. So I'm interested in what your nah is.
Yeah.
Not everybody's responsible for tracking a budget per se,
Yeah.
right? So I'll speak a little bit into our own project management because that's mostly what I am currently familiar with. But when we budget for a project, we're really budgeting people's time and allocating resources or people to a particular task within a certain amount of time.
Yeah.
So there is an amount of ownership that if you see that you've got a task that's supposed to take X amount of hours, that you're working within that budget, given to you, or potentially saying, hey, that's not enough time, like raising a red flag or whatever the thing might be. There's definitely some ownership from the people's perspective. But all of those are estimates, right? You never have things down to such a science that you're going to be able to say, yeah, I know it's going to take me exactly 10 minutes and 50 seconds to do this thing, right? Like, that's just not realistic. And, people are people. So whether, one day you might have someone high performing taking, doing 15 things in an hour, and the next day it might take them, the same 15 things could take half of the day. You just, whatever. So, but there is a time management and or budget allocation element that as a project manager, you're looking at from a holistic perspective to say, okay, I noticed that this task is near complete and we actually have some extra time there. This one seems to be struggling over here. So let's reallocate some of our resources over to that.
Yeah, and I love that you brought that up because I think what you're really highlighting is this difference in perspective between the tech themselves or the resource that is solving the problem and the person that's maybe has a bit more of a high level view on how we're allocating resources or how that project's actually going. Talk to me about some ways that you've seen in your experience in KDU too, in how you can communicate that high level to maybe that's to somebody that's more in that tech position or the one that's creating the code for the project itself or whatever that might look like. How have you seen that done well, I guess?
So we follow some agile methodologies, and I like to chunk things into a sprint or a phase or whatever term you want to use for project management, where we're thinking of things in a 1 to 2 week chunk. And when we're done with that, then we have some sort of deliverable for the client that feeds into the bigger project. And
so phasing out really is what you're
phasing things out. And now we can look at this on a micro scale while seeing how it plays into the big picture.
macro.
Yeah.
Right? And
Yeah.
so we're communicating to our client, yep, this is phase 1. We've got 10 of these. Let's look at this today. Did we nail it? Did we miss it? Oh, we did exactly what you said you wanted, but actually now you found out you didn't really want that, right? There's things that change, right? So we're kind of working through that while looking at, right, budget. Has our scope changed? Are we on track overall? Is there some sort of date we're tracking against? Are we on track for that or not? So picking out how those micro pieces fit into the macro and making it digestible for everybody, whether it's just the tech who's executing on the tasks or you have a high level person sitting at the table that just really wants, like, just tell me how we're doing with budget and are we on track for this big date that we have coming up. So making it make sense to everyone.
And you've had successful, let's call them phases within a bigger project. You've had, I would assume, many successful phases. And I'm guessing you've had a few ones that weren't as successful and right? Like,
Yeah,
you kind of
yeah.
take
Yeah.
the bad with the good and
Absolutely. You just own it. I think that's the best way to go about it is,
Yeah.
hey,
And just
well,
being
that
transparent.
that didn't go the way we wanted. Let's correct that. Let's get that right the next time. Let's learn from this. No project's going to go perfect. If anybody says it is, they're lying.
Yeah.
Oh man, I like you are setting it up right now for such a good segue because there are so I just listed some negative review of PM on the Reddit side. We've got some good ones too. So PMs are essential for effective communication and resource allocation. Absolutely a must if you are seeking quality projects and delivered. Like, so there are so many, like, this is why I love talking about this stuff, because there is so much tension between should you have project management or should you not. I think my personal bias and opinion is if you're going to do a project well, you need to have somebody there that on a high level can say, this is where my resources are. This is how we're going to allocate those. These are the dates that we're going to make it happen, all of that stuff. But what you just brought up is really interesting to me because I just pulled this statistic from 4PM source. I'm sorry, 4PM. It says 70% of projects start off prone to fail. What do you think about that?
That's a lot.
70% of projects start off prone to fail.
Yeah, absolutely.
Any thoughts?
I think it's impossible to gather every single requirement and to estimate everything perfect. And there's information out there that tells you that it's not worth your time to estimate things perfectly.
Okay.
Right? That there's a loss on your returns to try to nail that and better to like generalize it. So
Sure.
going in, not guessing, we don't want to guess, but what we want to do is
Guesstimate.
yes. Perfect. Thank you so much. Guesstimate.
Which is an educated way of guessing, right?
Yeah. We want
totally.
to get as much information as we can within a reasonable time frame, right?
Yeah.
We don't want to waste everyone's time. And we want to check in frequently to make sure we're getting that right. So if we go off the rails, we know sooner.
Okay.
Right? We don't want to go 2, 3, 4 weeks without checking in with our client and find out we've spent 100 hours in the wrong direction.
Yeah.
Right? But if we're like, hey, this new feature's ready, can you take a look? And we've spent just a couple hours on it and they say, oh, that's not quite right. Well, now we can adjust a lot faster.
Yeah.
We can
Yeah.
hop on a call. We can find out what information did we get that sent us off. Is the sooner you can catch it and correct it, the better. And just be clear about that. Oh, hey, we didn't get that right. Or, hey, it looks like the information that we've gotten, we didn't nail it.
Yeah.
And to build on that, I think getting in front of the end user or the proper stakeholders, a lot of times we have a client that we don't get to speak to the person who's actually doing the process. And I'm a huge advocate for, let me go talk to the person that's on the shop floor doing that. They know better than anybody else what's supposed to happen in this process and how we can maybe automate that or make sure we're matching exactly what needs to happen rather than an IT advocate trying to protect their time. Because in the end, it sometimes costs us more.
I want to park on that for a second because I think you brought up such a great point in that there are often times where we might, as administrators, say, well, I know this, like the data shows me X, Y, and Z, but it might not give you the deeper view to why the data is the way that it is. And so in like a means of protecting our time, sometimes we sacrifice the why. And the why can be so important to the direction of the project, right? And so I love that you said, hey, let's go to the tech, because I think bringing everybody to the table to solve a problem within a project is always going to be the better solution than just making the assumption, right?
Yeah.
What I was thinking in that 70% I thought was high too, but I kind of thought about, are they including all the types of projects that ultimately don't get project management and fail because the project was too small or it was small enough where we could get by without it? It failed. I mean,
Right.
if you had a PM, maybe it would have went better. That's
Did we
totally
miss
thing.
one scope item?
Yeah.
Did we go over by an hour? Like, what part of it did we fail? How much did we, or like it was catastrophic, right?
Right.
But great question. And I think part of that too is your experience is you've either been managing projects or you've had the experience of a decent project manager. Let me give you my experience in a previous
You have a
previous
failure
life.
example. A failure example.
I do, yeah.
Yeah.
We had somebody that was looking for the ability to supply product to new clients, And so what would end up happening is this person would just run out, find the product that they felt like we could service. And so they'd find that product, and then within 4 weeks, it'd be like, okay, we need to order the equipment. We need to figure out what the process is. And this happened over and over and over and over again. And inevitably on the operations side, what would end up happening is you would be rushing this process. You'd be rushing the project, and then people are there until 3 a.m. or until, 7 at night. And they got there at 5 a.m. to try to get this product out because there was no project management. And so I think when you say 70%, I don't know what the actual report numbers are. There aren't like statistics or like you can't drill down on that, right? But I think there are probably lots of projects within business world that don't have any system whatsoever. And so they're just like kind of flying by the seat of their pants to a certain extent. And to be quite honest with you, your Modern Work and Learning event really kind of honed in on some of that, because how many people were asking questions that were very basic project management, and there's no like ill will in saying that, but there were very basic project management questions like, hey, can Microsoft handle this? Can Microsoft do that? And it's like very simply like, hey, can Microsoft like give me tasks for a project? And so like when I think of project management failing at 70%, I'm like, yeah, that's probably right if we're talking about small business, right? So all that to say, that's probably where that statistic is coming from to a certain extent. And that wasn't even like, we're talking small business, but this was a manufacturing organization.
Yeah.
And so the reality of it is I think there are lots of people that are like, project management, I can do that. And then they have their own standard of what project management actually is, rather than a project management system that's working for them. They're actually might be just working against each other or working against themselves, right? Let's talk about the biggest challenges of project management for a second here. I have like 8 highlighted here, and I can read through a bunch of them at some point, but I would like to hear from the two of you. As far as your experience is concerned, what are the largest challenges that you faced in project management world? And I want to compare those to the ones that I've researched.
Yeah, I'll start with the heavy hitter. So budget.
Whether it's monetary or time, right? I'm assuming.
Yeah.
Could be a mixture.
I'm thinking time. I'm thinking from the project manager. We've already signed off. We have it's both, right? The numbers, the hours are the dollars.
Yeah,
right?
The dollars might just be hidden from your view while
and
you're
so
working.
we sign off on this project. We've put it as an estimate, but most of the time people are really sticking to that number. That we've agreed to that number. It feels like a do not exceed, really. It's like the ETA for your drive. Like we're going to beat it, right? And it doesn't always go that way. And like we talked about earlier, we're doing the best we can with an estimate without spending so much time estimating that it was, ridiculous amount. So we're going to take our best guess at that, and it's going to be something we have to manage throughout the entire thing.
Yeah.
Is there a term for, I know, and this is my ignorance speaking on project management verbiage. Is there an aspect or a term used when you just you do sprints or phases? You're not understanding the end goal. You don't care about the end goal. You're just getting this piece of the work done now and making it good, knowing that there's a bunch more. I want to say waterfall, because it's kind of the opposite of what you said. It's almost like we know there's a goal, an overall goal. We're trying to reach it, but we're only focusing on this part, and we're not even thinking
it depends
about the next
on which
part.
project management methodology that you subscribe to. So you could do phase.
Waterfall.
Waterfall is what I thought, and I
is,
wasn't sure if that makes okay.
That's when it's like you're held to like a hard deadline for each phase.
Yep.
But sometimes if we've agreed to a sprint, then there'll be maybe like an artifact at the end of it, like a deliverable.
Okay.
Like we
That
agreed
makes-
for this
that's what I was thinking.
feature in the next 2 weeks, and now we're going to review that. Did we get the definition of done? Did we do that correctly?
So just another way of thinking about it, another methodology is what that would
So
entail.
budget's probably the first one, and then just scope creep, which is budget's cousin, essentially, right? They go hand in hand together. So, hey, we love that. Oh, could you maybe do this? Or we start talking, I have developers, and so I have guys that are excited about technology, excited to make your life better.
Yeah.
And, we dig into something, and it's like, actually I have to manually enter all of that. Do do you think we could just do an upload of that file? And we're like, yeah. And we're talking and we're going and we want to do that for you. And we're looking back at the scope going, ooh, that's, we kind of just agreed to recreate it as is. Oh. And so you toe this line of, that would be really helpful. And I want to make my client's life better. But also we didn't agree to that. So now the project manager's got to be, Debbie Downer, buzzkill, whatever you want to, but the source of truth in the end, right?
Yeah.
You can call it whatever you want, but somebody's got to ground everyone in reality and say, hey, you know what? We agreed to this. I love that idea. I want to do that for you. If you want to go down that path, let's do that. And let's talk about how much more that's going to be, because that does sound really cool. But just keeping everybody grounded in, I love that for you, and I want to help you thrive even more and make this project better. But I don't want to create a situation for you that's going to be upsetting on the back end.
I love that, because when you're, especially in those meetings, you're often talking to somebody that's a visionary, right? And so you're talking about a visionary's like bread and butter, like, let's sit down, talk about a project, and dream of what it could be.
Right.
And so all of a sudden you go from, hey, this is my scope, to, wow, our scope is much larger now.
Right. Yeah. So you gotta, you find your place to put it, whether it's, some people call it the backlog. I heard just the other day someone called it the treasure map.
The treasure map.
Yeah. Leave it enticing.
We
We don't want to tell people we're not going to do something, but we need a home for all the grandiose ideas that we may or may not take action on, that were probably not included in this original scope.
Because then you can take them post-meet project, and
but
then,
it's all,
hey, are we going to do any of these things? Can we include these as a different project?
Right. It's all a part of that journey and their strategy, and making sure that we do things that help make their lives better. So we want to capture that info. We just want to make sure that we don't have to have a hard conversation really far down the line when we should have talked about it early.
Yeah, makes sense. Ben, what about you?
Yeah, this one's not necessarily project management specific, but it kind of is, because sometimes at the end of a project, there's our deliverable might be some training and implementation, so that way people can use something that they weren't using before that's now set up for them.
Sure.
So with the nature of how fast technology moves, you could work on a project, and then by the end of it, you go to deploy, and something from the program that people are going to be interfacing with, there's a major update. And so you might have planned one thing, then you go live, and it's like, oh, that's not working. We have to basically figure out how we're going to, retrain on this particular thing when you're on site, like with people trying to hash it out, right? Ooh. So that can be a pretty big challenge.
So you're talking about the unknown/risk factors, right? To a certain extent with that?
Yeah, to a degree. I mean, because you look at like a lot of what at least we do in Modern Work and Learning at Insight is base our solutions on the Microsoft stack.
Okay.
So you're talking Teams, SharePoint, OneDrive, and they're constantly updating those. Copilot, add that into the mix. Yep. I mean, probably the most iterative I've ever seen Microsoft be is with Copilot.
Okay.
So that changes like daily.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Biggest pain points. So you say budget and not just money, but you're also talking about time and resource. Okay. So you're talking about unknown risks, variables. What else? Anything else that you can think of as far as, okay, when I'm managing a project, the things that you also talked about scope creep, right? So these are the things that I'm really facing, or these are the challenges that I'm really facing on the project management side.
Yeah, I think capacity is one that we butt up against sometimes, as we plan out everyone's schedule and, things change. We've already alluded to that with scope creep. Somebody spent 10 hours on something instead of 5 hours, and project A moves along, but because project A, we spent extra time this week, project B doesn't move along. And lagging. We need to answer to both clients. We need everything to keep moving. So, keeping people busy while creating space for the unknowns.
Those unexpected things.
Right. We don't want to leave people too much space and have idle time, but we can't fill somebody's bucket so full that there's no wiggle room. It's just not workable.
Sure.
So that ever ongoing battle, right? It's just a daily thing, and stuff needs to get shuffled. And I think at the end of the day, that is where that project manager comes in. It's that problem solver, right? Like, we didn't know how to plan for this. Can you help? And now we're playing games, and how do we creatively make all of this work and keep keep our clients happy and loving our services while keeping our staff sane and also mentally well.
Yeah.
And that's the balance we look to strike.
Wow.
Yeah. I love that. Yep.
Great.
Ben, anything else?
That's gold. I can't.
That's
add
cool.
anything.
Yeah.
That was
That's
pretty
it. I
dang
can't
good.
get it. Yeah.
was
That's
good.
really good. Katie, that was a great summary. Like I love that. Okay. So, I want to just read to you the research that I've done as far as what the 8 largest gaps are within project management or the biggest risks are. And then what I really want to do is move into Microsoft, and not Microsoft because we're trying to like peddle or pitch Microsoft, but because I think there are a lot of tools that we have in Microsoft that we don't utilize because we just don't really know about them. But first, here are the top 8 challenges to project management. Number 1 is defining clear goals and scope. And Katie, I think you kind of hit on that. And man, I think what's so dangerous in project management is just the misalignment, especially when it comes to client and project manager or vendor, whoever it might be that's performing that project for you. But apparently there are 37% of projects fail due to a lack of detailed objectives and milestones, which to me isn't super surprising to me because you can have so many details and milestones and like you're just going to miss some here and there. The hope and the goal is that you're not missing those things, but if you're not thoughtful in how you're planning out the project, then sometimes it happens. Or sometimes you just miss something, right? Both on the client side and then also the person performing the project. So the second thing is this: communication and collaboration, which I'm really excited to talk about. And Ben, you did a fantastic job talking about that in the Modern Work and Learning Project Management, a collaborative project management event. So I'm excited to hear from you on that side of things. Resource management, managing time and deadlines, risk and uncertainty. Basically, in that one specifically is just anticipating the potential risks. So I like what you said, Ben, about there are sometimes like we will perform a project and then because technology is ever changing and constantly moving, there might be something that in the midst of that project, all of a sudden there's an update and I'm like, oh shoot, like I've now got to figure this update and how this is going to impact the project. That is something that we should always be thinking about as far as technology and how we're going to go ahead and pull off a project. Handling change and adaptation. This one to me is so key because it is such a distinct like people involvement in a project, right? We're going to launch this. We've got this, whatever it might be, whether we've got shop floor visibility or, hey, we're changing some things in SharePoint or we're going to utilize SharePoint differently or it's going to be a training site or whatever. And all of a sudden now you have to talk about how this is going to adapt to your culture or the people that it's going to impact, right? So I love that one because I think a lot of times we don't think about that. We just think, especially as an administrator or even as a leader, you have this vision of, hey, this project's going to absolutely transform the way that we operate. And then all of a sudden, like you're just meeting resistance for adoption. And you're like, oh, shoot, I didn't really think about that. So love that was called out. Stakeholders' expectations, which I think is huge, and you guys both touched on that a little bit, and then technology integration. So choosing the right project management tools and ensuring seamless adoption without overwhelming the team, that can be a tricky thing, and that's kind of listed here. So the thing that I really want to park on here, Ben, and Katie, please add as it comes up, but Microsoft, right? We have spent so much time dissecting, and you specifically, you're a certified Microsoft trainer. You spend the majority of your time trying to facilitate Microsoft adoption and training and just really utilization across the board, not because you just want to push Microsoft, but you're already paying for this, right? And so when it comes to project management, let's hone in on that collaboration space, because I think what was so fun about watching you talk to, from small business owner to large business owner to large business leader was the capability that Microsoft has to do with the collaboration space within project management. So I want to let you like take that away. What really makes you excited about Microsoft and the way that you can collaborate within project management?
It's kind of funny you say that too, because immediately I start thinking about like there are a lot of different tools and a lot of different ways to do things.
Sure.
And so you might have I don't mean to give, marketing people a bad rap, but it's like almost all marketing people in the world feel like they use Google and Asana, right?
Yeah,
like
sure.
it's like the marriage that they have.
Yeah.
And or maybe they'll throw in Slack for communications,
Yeah.
and they're just grabbing all these tools and they're doing all the things.
Yeah.
That can work for a small team to an extent, and or maybe you're really landing on something like Asana that's your source of truth. And that's really a lot of what it comes down to, is having a source of truth, a place that people can look for things and know how to find things without wasting a lot of time searching. And when it comes to Microsoft, I just love the fact that not only has Microsoft been I think it's been like 6 years now that Microsoft Teams specifically has been a unified communications leader in the space. So I mean that incorporates some of your like chatting and your phone service and things like that. And so they're out there basically winning these awards for the software that they create. But that's really just one tool of many that all integrate really well together. And on top of that, when you look at going and using like the Asana or the Monday.com or maybe something else that you have, oftentimes those large players, because they know Microsoft Teams is a central hub for communication and collaboration, they're building out integrations that work directly within Microsoft Teams. So you don't have to be 100% Microsoft centric to really value or leverage and get the value out of that Microsoft Teams subscription.
Certainly. Yeah. Yeah. As far as when you're thinking about project management specifically, let's go like practical for a second. Tasks, cards, projects itself. How are you tracking that? If I was like, hey, Ben, here's a project. This is what we're going to do. Let's say SharePoint migration, and there are going to be 3 or 4 different key players in that migration, maybe creating a training site, whatever. How are you going to manage your task? How are you going to manage your responsibilities? How are you going to manage kind of the flow?
We have our own ticketing system in ConnectWise. And so we do heavily rely upon that for a lot of things.
Sure.
But that doesn't mean that we can't also link to it from Microsoft Teams. So if I'm talking to someone about updating a ticket, I, as maybe project manager in that case, will send them a link directly to that web ticket. So that way I'm saving them time from having to go and fish for it.
Sure.
So really you have that central communication hub of Teams. And then, of course, there's Planner, Tasks by Planner to do, it used to be called. Now it's just Planner. And the to-dos, and you have your Outlook and all the different things that you can do, like flagged email, all these different places that you can create or generate tasks because people are maybe clients emailing you, maybe a teammate's messaging you. You can bring all of those into a single pane of glass within Microsoft, which is awesome.
Let's park on Planner for a second.
Yeah.
I'm going to be really vulnerable here for a second, okay?
Ooh, I like it.
When I came to Insight, somebody would ask me, hey, do you utilize Teams? Yeah, I utilize Teams. I Teams people all the time.
I hear this all the time.
Yeah,
I'm good at messaging.
Exactly.
We've all been on this
Good at I
journey.
am.
You got it. Yeah, that's exactly right. Like I Teams people all the time. I'm using the chat in Teams.
That's Teams.
Yeah.
Or I've
As
been
far as Travis knew it.
As far as I knew at that
it's
point.
either that or I've been on a Teams meeting.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right. Exactly.
Those
yeah.
are the two.
Good.
Yeah.
And quite honestly, the Teams meetings that I was a part of they were all Insight initiated, right? So one was Ben Zuniga, one was Tim Austin. And so all that to say, I had very little knowledge of what Teams could actually provide for anything administrative, whether it was file sharing or task like tracking or any of that stuff. Planner itself. When I came on here and I had to organize, Planner changed my life. Absolutely changed my life. As far as project management is concerned, how would you utilize Planner to phase out and create task assignments?
Yeah. So again, I guess for us, though, we do have our source of truth, which we're going to be tracking our budget and all of that within our ConnectWise ticketing system. But for certain projects, it does make sense to actually have like a template planner board that you can just say, okay, these are the tasks that we need to do. And so we can create, well, let's look at even our own events that we do as an example.
That's a great example.
So Dean and I, early on when we started collaborating together on this, I'm like, we really need to make this repeatable. So we actually spent the time to say, what are all the things that we normally do? What are the things that we should be doing? And let's create a really well built out plan. And we built it in Planner.
Yeah.
And we have buckets of like just a to-do bucket. Maybe here's a week prior tasks that need to get done, the day of tasks that need to get done. And so we have this all laid out so that all we have to do is the next time we're going to be planning for an event, all we do is we create a copy of that planner board. All of our tasks that we could possibly ever imagine or want are there for us to work on, assign to each other, or to put a date on it and those kinds of things. All of those planner tasks, including your personal to-dos and everything else, roll up there into the Planner app.
Yeah. And one other thing to add to that, if there's anybody that's listening and they're paying for Asana or any other Scrum programming themselves, and then they're also utilizing Teams, I would just encourage you to do this. Just think about what it is that you're utilizing Asana for, because if you're utilizing Asana and you have access to Teams and Planner, you can probably nix one or the other. And I wouldn't recommend nixing Teams because it's so versatile, where Asana is like, hey, this is your Scrum board, right? So all of that to say, I'm a huge fan of Planner, if you can't tell already. Like, I'm a huge fan of Planner.
Well, let me just give you a practical example.
Please.
So if you're in a chat with someone and you're like, oh, that needs to be a to-do, that needs to be added to the project. Mm-hmm. You can literally click the 3 dots on that chat or on a channel conversation and go over to the Planner icon and make a Planner task from there and assign it to that particular project.
Yes.
And now you're tracking that. So when you're reviewing all of your tasks that you have to do, you can see that there and you're not losing it in that conversational history.
Yes.
So it saves you that time from having to even move out to another place. It's just you put it there and then you can follow up on it later.
Yeah. And you can have multiple. I love that you can create multiple boards, and then so you can select. I mean, you just said it. Like, you're like, hey, should we be utilizing some Microsoft things? Like, I think Planner is an awesome way to do that. You can have 20 projects moving in Planner in and of itself.
And it's easy.
Yeah,
that's what I love, using a Kanban board that integrates with the rest of our tool stack in Teams. Right? Like, what do I have to do today? And the best thing about a Kanban board is you can visualize at a glance, this is what I'm doing today. And you can feel the weight of that's too much or that's not enough. And you can drag stuff back and forth.
Yeah.
I love how easy it is for anybody to jump in and use Planner. It's very visually intuitive, right?
Yeah.
I've got somebody's face on the front of the card. That's who the owner is.
Yeah.
I can set a date. I have a title of the card. If I click into the card, I can get more information. I can see the checklist that's in there. I can leave notes. I can do all that stuff. But if I'm sitting from a higher level and just want that 3,000-foot view, I can look and see, what are we working on right now?
Yeah.
And is it blocked? Where do I need to help today? Right?
Yeah.
Like, where am I stuck at today? What roadblocks do we need to unblock? Mm-hmm. And I think that's great for our teams. I don't want engineers and developers stuck in a tool and doing cumbersome administrative tasks. I want them to just see what they want to do, and they want that too. They want to show up and say, this is what I'm doing today. I get to pull it in with my own system. It's really simple, and I'm off to the races. I'm getting to work.
You got
Not
it.
doing all this clicking and jumping around and hopping between systems. If I have a question on something, I'm right in that Teams channel. I can message my teammates that are on that team and not people outside of that project. Now everything's in there. If I need to go back to the notes from the project call that we had the day before, we're linked into OneNote as well. Now I can reference that. Maybe we have a Power BI that's showing us how many agreement hours are left in our agreement or in our project budget. It's all this central hub. And I loved Dean and Ben's presentation last week that just kept saying, like, this hub. And it just struck me like, oh, it's like a home for everything.
Yeah.
And I can just be in the moment and not clicking between a bunch of different systems. It just works. And it's so easy for everybody to have everything right at your fingertips and not be clicking between applications.
Planner, Microsoft Planner, is that included in I would say most of the subscriptions that companies have for their end users.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
It's not an add-on. Maybe it used to be, but I believe today, isn't it just included in maybe even the lowest tier of Microsoft license subscription, correct?
That's a great question, and it actually reminds me a little bit of where I was thinking with this too.
Perfect.
So some people might get a little bit confused when they're looking at the whole breadth of tools that Microsoft provides. I mean, you have Project, which it was a completely separate thing. You have your To-Do, which is another app. You have Flagged, Tasks, and Outlook. You've got the planner boards as well. And so you've got all of these different potentially disparate systems or different ways of managing tasks. But back in, at least this is the first time I really remember it, back in November of 2024 during Microsoft Ignite, they announced that the planner team at that time announced that they were really pulling together Project and Planner and everything else. I mean, they already started doing the work ahead of time where, your tasks were also showing up in Planner and things like that. So your own personal to-dos, I should be clear. So what they've done and what they continue to move towards is this one planner app that's going to be flexible to meet your particular demands and needs. So if you have a Microsoft 365 standard license, you will have the planner capability baked in as well. So that's really helpful. But let's say you need to do something that's a little bit more advanced. Then's when you might need a project. Sorry, they used to call them project, but now they're getting away from that even. So like planner, plan 1 or 3. So there are different layers of licensing that include different functionality. And so if you need a really robust project management solution, you might be looking at that planner plan 3 or something like that.
So is it fair to say that if you're a company listening right now, paying for Asana, you're paying for Microsoft licensing, your team, your project management team is using Asana, they could be using Microsoft. You could eliminate Asana. And maybe you know that. Maybe the reason you're hanging on is because, well, my PMs, they're used to using Asana. They like Asana. Like that's where you can like set this, like we're paying for this other tool. We don't, like this is streamlining. Let's get more efficient.
Yep.
Yes, maybe you do need to learn the differences between Asana and Microsoft Planner, Project, whatever. And maybe we just make the switch and lessen our payment load paying for Asana. We just embrace Microsoft a little more. A little bit of training, a little bit of understanding, getting used to it. But hey, man, how many people do you got using Asana? Bam, you're just saving that much money because you're already paying for Microsoft applications that you're just not utilizing.
Yeah, I think that's totally doable for a lot of organizations. So I wouldn't use that as a blanket statement by any means. There
sure.
are specific niches that something like a Monday.com or
Sure.
Asana is going to have that maybe your team really needs that to be efficient. A particular feature that they developed that maybe is not included in the basic planner. So I just want to be clear about that. So there's definitely some discovery that I would do along those lines. But I think what you're saying is absolutely spot on. If you haven't gone and evaluated Planner, at least go check it out.
Yeah.
Because
Why not? You're probably already paying for it.
You're probably already paying for it, and it's going to be integrated right into Teams. They've got a great mobile app. There's a lot of great reasons to use it, and if it meets your needs and you're already paying for another product, why would you do that? And going to some of the automation side of things a little bit too. There are some Power Automate, low code, no code things that you can do as a project manager as well. So maybe you want to automate something and you're used to doing that in Asana. Well, you might be able to do that in Microsoft. It's just learning a new tool.
Exactly,
a little bit.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and so let's keep this in the collaborative space for a second. What makes Planner a bit more collaborative? So, and I think, Ryan, you touched on some things too, where you're like, oh man, like I really like this in Asana. Like there are these certain features that I like, and I'm not sure that Microsoft might be able to, provide that. So like something that I remember hearing from the event that you had pulled off last week is, hey, once a task is completed, can I be notified as the project manager or somebody that's involved with the project that task has been completed, because my task actually hinges on somebody else's tasks being completed. And the answer to that is yes. But the reality of it is maybe it's not super obvious that that's the case for Planner. So it is, like you said, like we have to be able to learn those tools. But the reality of it is I just want people to know on the Microsoft side, there are lots of people I think that don't know that you can actually project manage with your Microsoft that you're already paying for.
Totally agree.
Rather than maybe having to go to Asana. And I think people don't know that. And so on the collaborative space, I guess, what makes Planner a good tool to be collaborative within project management?
A couple of things.
Okay.
One is that if you're working within teams specifically, you create a team, it's actually already created a Planner space for you on the back end that maintains the same membership. You don't have to recreate the permissions wheel on that to grant another group access or try to remember to manage those separately. And actually, this was one of those fun surprises that we had where Loop started coming into the workplace. Into the space as well. But Loop still pretty young overall in its product development, but it's an awesome app.
I love Loop.
Yeah.
I was wondering if it was going to work its way into this
Oh
conversation.
no, it's working its way in.
I love Loop.
Yeah.
I love it enough that it was worth, managing a separate Loop workspace over here and a team over here for a bit. But now Microsoft has created it so that way when you create a team, you can actually add Loop as a tab in your team channel space.
Mm-hmm.
So we think of channels as kind of our main topic. So for smaller projects, you might not only have your general channel or something like that. But if you've got things that you're tracking or multiple projects that you're tracking for a client or something along those lines in a channel structure, then your tabs become organized automatically for you. So in the sense of collaboration space, it's very well organized. You come in, you get into the team that makes sense for you. You only see the teams that you're a part of, not anything more. And then you see the channels that you're a part of. And in that channel, you'll have everything organized for you. So you'll have your tab to get into your Loop workspace that now, again, is automatically provisioned with all the same membership. So I just add someone to the team, and they're automatically given access to all the resources.
I love that. Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. That's awesome. Katie, I see you like nodding your head. Is there anything that you're like really passionate about as far as Planner's concerned or anything that you've experienced? I just want to give you the opportunity.
No, that's fine.
Okay.
I think as far as it's all concerned, everybody shows up in different ways, no matter what tool you're using. And what I love about the Microsoft suite within the Teams hub is that, let's say someone's super structured. So let's use Planner. Let's set all the dates. Let's do all the cards. Great. Now we've got that all in a box. But let's say like we're in brainstorming mode or we have a creative type. Let's open Loop and let's be a little chaotic, right? Like we don't need to be so organized.
Yep.
I love to find a tool that fits each person's brain and what makes them come alive. Like let's capture that information. However, when we're in OneNote, we're taking notes on something. It's very structured. We got the bullet points. It's detailed. So that's sort of where my mind is at. Is like let's let people show up in their strongest ways, and all the different Microsoft tools within Teams lets people do that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, and it's very naturally going this way, so I think it's a great way to transition right into Loop, right? So I think between Loop and Planner, Microsoft actually gives a really unique opportunity for project management in a way that people aren't usually used to, right? Because not only can you track the tasks that you're supposed to be getting done and who's involved and who's responsible and when it's taken care of and when you can start yours and all that good stuff, but it also gives you the ability to visually track and see what not only you're working on, but other people are working on. So
yeah, and one of the main things that real quick that you're kind of hinting towards and that I think is worth calling out is that with teams and channel structures and then using your, the Planner board or the Loop workspace or maybe even a channel organized meeting, when you do that, you're doing maybe not pinging everybody that has or that could see that.
Yeah.
So you can what I like to call tune your notifications so that way you can see more of what you want, less of what you want, the important projects to you, so on and so forth. But it's still all open communication.
Yeah.
So there's none of this. I had this side conversation over here in email with this person, and then I have to retell it to this person, and then, oh, by the way, we need this person involved. all you have to do is bring someone in with an app mention into a conversation that already exists in a threaded channel, and the context is there.
Yes, absolutely. Which I think is such a plus for the Microsoft toolset and what it offers for the project management. I think and I would just maybe caveat it with this. There are going to be people and I say this because I'm this way, where I want things to be perfect, and so I'm not open to the constructive criticism, right? And so when you're talking about a collaborative project management and workspace, and what Katie, you alluded to and what you said was, hey, let's let people operate in their strengths. And what that means is there's going to be somebody that's very strong in one area and maybe a little bit weaker in the other. But the beauty of that is, in working in projects together, is that you can hone in everyone's strength and make the project freaking awesome, right? And so what that means for culture within your organization is that you have to be able to be safe in whether it's criticism or how you're communicating or whatever. Like if you're not in a workspace where people are like, oh man, I trust my team to be at least kind in the way that they give me feedback, Microsoft might be a big lose for you. But if that's the position you're in and you're working in that environment, I think you should be asking yourself the question, how can I create a space that allows for people to utilize their gifts, talents, and abilities for the organization and for the people around them that's going to be a positive impact rather than a negative one, right? So all that to say, talk to me about Loop in a collaborative space, just as far as being able to work off of each other. What makes that so unique and what makes that so, I think, convenient?
Loop has, in my mind, two really large strengths going for it. One is that it's a live, editable, collaborative platform that is like literally you could bring up two different computers and you could be editing over here and you might not know which one you were actually inputting in because it's so live. Yep. It's incredible. Yeah. And so that real-time collaboration is awesome. Not only that, if I have a Loop page or a component and I paste that into a Teams channel, or if I paste that into an email, or if I paste that into a Word document or a OneNote or wherever I'm putting that, it's live and collaborative and editable right within that workspace. I don't have to link out to my browser and then get lost in my sea of browser tabs. It's right there within that other document or that other collaboration space that I'm already in. I can make my suggestions, maybe archive that email or move on to the next thing. So it really brings this cross app and cross collaboration and communication space. And then the second strength that it does is that it's highly flexible in its permission structure. So let's say we need to get some opinions from a leadership team that maybe otherwise doesn't really care about a project specifics, right? So maybe they're not a part of the project team, but you want to create a Loop voting table so that way you can get a pulse or some ideas from a leadership team. You could send them that Loop component. They don't even have to have access to the whole workspace. So now literally just that table of information and that's it. I send that one table into a channel communication or into an email, and they can vote on the things that they care about, or they can add a new line to that table and say, put some comments in there. So it's extremely flexible in its permission structure as well, which is unlike anything else that Microsoft has done so far.
Yeah, that's so cool.
I think of Loop like a portal gun. You have this gun you can configure. You can shoot this portal at this wall, this wall, this wall. But they all lead to the same place. Doesn't matter which portal I go into. Yeah. The back end is all the same.
Yep.
So if I'm working over here in this room, I got this port. Yeah, I'm going to reach in there and dial this up. Yeah. And I can do the same thing when I go over to this. Yeah. It's just an easy access way.
Yeah. Just let people work in whatever application they prefer. We have so many different people here. If you want to be an email guru, be you.
I'm going to shoot a
Loop
portal over to Outlook for you, but I know he likes OneNote the best, so he's going to make sure he's accessing that in OneNote.
So actually, real quick, this is a kind of circle back to something else that we talked about.
Are you looping back, would you say?
I'm looping back to Planner. So So another cool thing with Planner and Loop, so Loop obviously we just talked about works well in email.
Yeah.
There are some people that struggle, at least initially, with some Teams adoption, and that's a real thing. Okay, so you can, again, with Loop, bring that right to them into Outlook. Same is true to a degree with Planner. So if you assign someone a task within Planner app, within Teams, it will actually email them to let them know that they've received that task.
Yeah.
And then they can click through and get to that task. So it kind of, again, meets people to some degree where they're at. And then as that due date is coming up for that, it'll send them another email reminder.
Yeah.
So you're kind of automating some of that reminder and follow-up by putting things in the right place. And again, showing kind of how Microsoft is making their whole ecosystem work together.
Absolutely. And then even bringing it back, right? Then all of a sudden the project manager isn't necessarily the quote unquote babysitter, right? All of a sudden there's
Right.
automation in place that's like,
Yeah.
Yep.
hey, by the way, this is a helpful reminder rather than a nag of a person on the other side, or it could feel like to a tech, right?
Right.
Like it's a nag. It feels like a nag because I'm doing, 8 things at a time. And you're like, well, shoot, like as a project manager, I still need this task done too.
Right.
So the automation might be helpful rather than hearing from somebody. And oftentimes I think in those scenarios, the tech or the person that is, reporting to that project manager, they're not railing against the project manager. They're trying to perform. And so when they feel like, oh my goodness, I've got either too much to perform on or the task at hand is a lot, it then sometimes feels a bit personal rather than having somebody say, hey, where are we at in this? It's just an automated reminder to say,
Sure.
hey, go ahead and remember to do this thing. And it's
Yeah,
less
yeah.
personal, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I want to play a game with you guys. Okay. This is a little bit different. I don't know that we've ever done this.
I don't think so.
We're going to play a game. Okay,
Sure.
here we go. So I went through the 8 challenges of project management, okay? I want to go through that again and utilize Microsoft, right? We're a fan of Microsoft. We're a Microsoft shop here. It is what it is. I'm not trying to pitch anybody Microsoft at this point, but I do want people to know that if you're talking specifically about project management and you're struggling in this area, you are utilizing Microsoft Teams or Microsoft in general, that you do have options to make yourself be more efficient and better in this area. So I want to list off the challenges that we just listed off, 30 minutes ago or 20 minutes ago. And I'd love for you to just real quickly say, this is where you can solve that from.
Ooh,
Is that okay?
interesting.
All
Does
right.
that, does that,
Try it.
let's try
Let's
it.
see.
Okay. And if
I'm
there's
taking
nothing,
notes, folks.
Do we
Yeah.
have to answer at the same time?
and then this is a team effort. You guys do
Yeah.
what you
Okay.
guys do what you guys
All right.
can do. Okay. So, and if there's nothing, please just say, hey, I don't know that you can solve that from here.
NA.
Okay.
Sure.
Not
Yeah.
available.
NA, not available. Yep. We want to be honest. Okay. So are you ready? Number 1, defining clear goals and scope was a number 1 listed challenge in project management. Is there anything in Microsoft that can help us be able to at least identify and track clear goals and scope in a project?
I'll take on a couple initial answers. So one, when you're setting like a kickoff meeting, when you're organizing a meeting in Microsoft Teams, you can actually go to the agenda section below as you're scheduling the meeting. Now, I'm not talking about the description. If you keep scrolling down, if you're in Teams and you're scheduling the meeting, there's actually an agenda that you can create, which,
Yeah.
by the way, is a Microsoft Loop.
Oh, I didn't know it was
I didn't
Yes.
know it was Loop either.
That's
Yes.
amazing.
So you can set these bullet points of what you're trying to accomplish ahead of time, copy the Loop component, send it to people, and they know what you're going to be meeting about in
Boom.
advance. They can prepare. They can even add notes to it. Again, this is a live collaborative platform with Loop.
Yeah.
So they have the ability to get that in advance for sure. So that's one area that I say that you could solve that. Now, if you wanted to go like Planner Plan 3 or whatever and get some of the project online stuff, you can actually set goals in there as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Anything to add, Katie?
Yeah, I think maybe even checklists in OneNote potentially.
Sure.
Let's make sure we're asking all the right questions. We're all human and not going to remember to ask every single
Totally.
thing. So when we're scoping something out and getting all those requirements, let's make sure we ask all those good questions. and capture that in OneNote. And then when the project goes live, we have all that information ready to roll in our new team.
Yeah. Yeah.
You might have
Great.
that templated out where you have a list of questions.
Yeah, let's
Generic.
not reinvent the wheel with
Exactly.
it. And
You
then
might
let's
add some more
let's
along
keep
the
building
way,
on it as we learn new things.
Yeah. 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 Okay.
I like that too, because really the first step to automation is templating. So if you can template something like that and you have certain things that are going through every time, you're going to save yourself a lot of trouble.
Yeah. This one I think we've already answered, and it's very, very obvious in the last, 15 minutes that we were talking, but collaboration and communication.
Hands down. Yeah. I mean, that's what Teams is all about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. I agree. Loop, planner, Teams,
Yeah.
channels, all of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay.
Microsoft can do
Oh.
collaboration.
I will say we've kind of neglected to mention that Microsoft is actually a powerhouse with document collaboration as well.
Oh,
So
yes.
you have that Teams channel structure.
Yep.
You have a files tab. Put all your documentation in there. Everybody can access it, and you can make live updates to that documentation as you go. People can be on the same document, live collaborating at
Yeah.
the same time. So if any of our friends watching this are still using an old file server,
yeah.
they're really missing out with their file lockouts. They should really be in Microsoft 365 and live collaborating on documents as well.
I'm so glad that you said that. And the reality of it is we utilize that day to day between our advisory team and our operations team, right? Even with strategy, like client strategy. Each one of our clients, we love what we do here, just as far as providing a strategy to make sure that our partnership is creating success for each client. And so, like, if we have a tech that's working on a certain problem and they're like, oh, I've spotted this other problem, they can go into that client folder, go into their files, look for their IT strategy, click on that and say, okay, is this problem listed in their strategy? If not, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do an app mention to this team or this team member and say, hey, listen, client X, Y, and Z needs to be thinking about replacing APs or replacing their firewall or whatever that may have been missed, and it's not in their strategy. So I love that, and that what a great call out, Ben. That was
Yeah.
a great call
Good
out.
point.
Yeah. Yep.
Which we often take for granted.
We do.
Because we're just
We
so
do.
used to
Yeah.
live
Yeah.
file
You don't
collaboration.
think of
so.
it.
Yep.
But
Totally.
there are a lot of organizations out there that are not doing that today.
Yes.
Yeah, version 3 is sitting on somebody's desktop, right?
You got
Yes, exactly.
Eliminate
You're
the
right.
need to go chasing documents.
Yep.
Or in someone's Outlook. Yeah.
Yeah, different versions.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I laugh at, like, I just laughed at that. It's not funny. I laugh because I can relate with the pain.
Right.
Like,
Yeah,
I
we've
remember.
all done it.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
remember the days where I was like, yeah, nobody has access. Like, I can't see what like phase 3 or collaboration 3 looks like because it's on somebody else's desk. You know what I mean? So, yeah, dating myself, getting old. Resource management.
Ooh,
Yeah,
that's kind of a loaded one.
That's something
That
I
is
never
a
get
loaded-
into.
Probably, I would say planner first. Let's make sure that we're spreading our tasks out that match how much capacity someone has and the velocity that we're going to go on this project.
Sure.
And then just the chat tool is one of my favorites.
Okay.
Going back to the people need to be grown-ups thing.
Yeah.
I might
Tell
get in
me.
trouble.
I can
Where's
tell.
this
I
going?
can,
Yeah, yeah.
I
It's
can
getting hot
see
right
it
now.
in you. Yeah. Tell me.
I don't know if I'll get in trouble for this comment, but
Get in trouble. Get in
So
trouble.
people
much
need to
trouble.
use their calendars. Use your stinking calendar.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah.
if we're talking about resource management, if you have something scheduled on your calendar, then you're not going to be double booked.
Not available.
necessarily,
Yeah,
right?
totally.
Or if you're a project manager and you're trying to say, I need this task done by this time, and you're looking at several of your teammates' calendars, you'll know who has the availability.
Yeah.
So it's a very simple thing, but sometimes we still find that there are people out there that are not using their calendars. And so when you have a Microsoft account, you have a calendar.
Yeah.
And so just throwing that out there.
I love that point. It's great. It is a culture thing though for each company, I think, because the reality of it is we, especially at Insight here, like we know that people are utilizing their calendar. So if I want to know what Ryan's doing and I'm like, hey, I'm going to open up Ryan's calendar because I need to meet with Ryan and I need an hour of his time.
Yeah.
I go to his calendar and if he's got an open time, I just grab it. Like we're meeting at this time. And Ryan does the same thing with me. You would do the same thing with me. I would do the same thing with Katie, right? It is a culture thing though, because if half of us were doing that and the other half weren't, it wouldn't work, right? And so I think like my encouragement to any leader in that position would be invest in utilizing the tools that you have, because although it might be a pain in the butt to start, like, hey, put everything on your calendar, put everything on your calendar, put everything on your calendar. When it becomes like second nature, it is amazing.
Oh,
One less
absolutely.
thing that's going to contribute to not being able to collaborate correctly.
Yes.
Well, yeah, even
absolutely.
Even going back to resource management, you can create a meeting in Teams or in the new Outlook, and it will actually suggest times that everybody's available.
Yep.
That saves you even from having to open up and try to scroll through and figure what's
You're
going
right,
on.
yeah.
You
Yeah.
literally just click the next available time, and your meeting is going to work for everyone.
Yep.
That simple.
I have used that
Yep.
before. I always get leery because I know, like, this meeting's 2 weeks out in the future. I know something's going to come up for somebody else. So
Yeah.
Sure, take it with a grain of salt.
Exactly.
But, yeah.
But yeah, I know exactly what you're saying.
All right, we've got about 5 minutes left, and I want to get through all of these. So let's go
all
go
right.
quick.
Okay.
Okay. Are we ready?
Rapid speed.
Yep. Managing time and deadlines.
Calendar,
Planner.
planner.
Okay,
With
yeah.
due dates. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because they sync
Yep.
together.
Yep. Risks and uncertainty.
Yeah, I would say if you had that good checklist from the get-go when we were scoping,
Yeah.
do we also have something we ran through of common risks? Did we run through that? Did we capture that when we scoped it?
Yeah.
Kind of starts on that front end.
And I would even argue on that side, like, you want as many eyes on that as possible to be able to evaluate the risks.
Yeah.
So the collaboration space of Loop and Planner might give us a little bit more opportunity to handle that risk side of things as well.
Yeah, a lot of that's process related, but
Yep.
I mean, you could still facilitate something like that through OneNote or through a Word document.
Yeah.
Let's not forget that if you have like an initial scoping call or discovery meeting with a client, you can record and transcribe and Copilot that
Yeah.
thing. So you can actually come away with just even asking Copilot what were the concerns that came up during this
Yeah.
call, and immediately within a few seconds you have a good list that you can work from.
Yeah. For sure. Okay, we'll keep moving. Handling change and adaptation.
So I think part of that is the responsiveness to something when it happens.
Mm-hmm.
An email could sit there for a day or two, but if you send someone an instant message in Teams, they're likely to see it and reply right away. So that's going to be keeping your communications going a lot faster and keep you flexible.
I agree. Loop, I think, is like,
Yeah.
for me, is so key. Like, if there's a change in scope or whatever, and you're communicating, whether that's, and it could be Teams channel, client comm, right? That kind of stuff. That's a big one.
Totally agree. Whichever flavor moves the fastest
Yep.
with your team's choice.
Yeah. How about stakeholder expectations?
Boy, I just love a good collaborative meeting for
Yeah.
that.
I was going to say
And
just the Teams meeting.
Teams meeting,
Yeah.
Yep. That's
what I was
right?
gonna
Let's
say.
just have a clear conversation. Let's talk about all of it and make sure they feel heard and seen.
I haven't done this personally, but I've heard of people using like a spreadsheet to track key stakeholders.
Yeah.
And even like rate where they're at as far as like high priority or whatever they're, I don't know. But anyway, so you could have something like that and just attach it as a tab in the Teams channel.
Yeah.
So you can put any kind of document you want out there, or use Microsoft lists if you want to track stuff like that too.
Okay.
So yeah, there's a lot of options for that.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Last one here. Technological integration.
What's being
Teams.
integrated?
Yeah.
The Teams hub.
Are we integrating
Yeah.
outside from Microsoft, inside to Microsoft?
I think I would take the approach of adoption and change management on this.
Okay. Good. Yeah.
And I think really a lot of people miss, like, even just the other day I had someone say, "Oh, I'm fine with just a like a handout or like a guide or whatever." But me, 9 times out of 10, I would much prefer to say, let's get some hands-on training and make sure that people feel comfortable with new technology, because
Yeah.
it's a new way to work. It's going to take some time to adjust. And if we can even preemptively come in and do some training before we launch, that's even better.
Yeah.
And we've done that a lot, where we'll say, let's introduce you to this thing. Let's get you somewhat acclimated before we're going to expect you to completely be operating in it.
Yeah.
Yeah, love that.
Yep. I do too. Okay, cool. One last thing before we bounce. If you could leave someone in the project management world one nugget for free, one free thing, what would you give them?
Assume positive intent.
Ah, man.
Wow.
Just
Katie.
always assume everybody's trying their best.
So
People
good.
have lives outside
Yes.
of work and stuff happens, and I think most people are showing up trying to do a good job. And
Totally
if you
agree.
start with that in mind, your defense mechanisms come down really fast.
Totally
Right
agree.
before you said that, I was thinking everybody's human, and I
Yeah.
feel
Yeah.
like I could wiggle that into
Yeah,
exactly
we
what
work
you just
together a
said.
lot
Yeah.
easier when we
Yep.
start with that.
Yep.
Yeah. Great thought. Great thought. Ben, what about you?
I don't know if I can follow that very well, but I would just say communicate. Because ultimately, I mean, before things even appear to possibly be a problem, just be communicative about it. So
Yeah.
that way there's no surprises. And along with that same vein of communication, have regular follow-ups and meetings so that way everybody's on the same page.
Yeah. Yeah. Ben, Katie, thank you so much. We appreciate you guys so much, and you guys have had and are continuing to have so much impact on our clients, colleagues, and community. We are so thankful for you guys. Thank you for giving us a couple hours of your time to be able to talk and learn from you, and hopefully we'll be seeing you back here soon.
It was fun. Thanks,
Yeah,
guys.
yeah.
Thank you.